Adrian's happy with his hand. Not sure if Kevin is pleased with his. Both players currently on 6 cards. We are underway here in the finals from Milwaukee. Just a couple of lands to start. This will be a Plains for Sullivan. He'll pass the turn back over to Huang. He will draw. He will play a swamp to pass the turn. He did pick up a copy of Underworld Connections. Looks like he may have a 3rd swamp in his hand to actually be able to play that this turn. Sullivan, we'll see if he has a 3rd land. And he does. It's a Hallowed Fountain that he's going to play untap before. Maybe passing the turn back, maybe casting a Divination. We'll see.
Yeah, again, Adrian does not have a lot of ways to answer a Underworld Connections off of 2 mana. He only has 1 copy of Syncopate in his main deck. He does have 3 Dissolves, however.
You see Kevin with a little bit of patience here, trying to play around a Dissolve to the best that he can. Maybe Sullivan will tap low to cast a Jace this turn. Not entirely sure. He's just going to play Temple of Enlightenment right now. Kevin could also try to run himself into a Thoughtseize. We could see a Thoughtseize plus Connections turn.
Yeah, Connections plus with Thoughtseize backup is a good route here.
There's 4 mana. That's a Desecration Demon. And this will be an Essence Scatter. So maybe not the Dissolve that Kevin was trying to get out of his hand. Essence Scatter playing a nice role here.
Yeah, I think Kevin would have been thrilled to even trade it with a Syncopate. Essence Scatter is the worst of them all.
A Plains and just Sullivan passing the turn back over to Kevin. Now, of course, any removal that Kevin does draw is not going to be very useful here. He's going to tap 4 mana and attempt to land another copy of Desecration Demon. We'll see if Sullivan cares about this one here.
I really like what Kevin's doing here. He is trying to bleed out the permission because Underworld Connections is his path to victory.
Yep.
If any of these demons stick, that's great. Maybe he has a clock going. Maybe it matters. But he's trying to play the game to get Underworld Connections to resolve, which is his route to victory.
And there is a Syncopate along with a Cycle of Azorius Charm. So a little bit of velocity here from Sullivan as he'll take a draw. That is a Plains. This is a passing of the turn. Maybe he has a Revelation, maybe he doesn't, as Kevin will take a draw. It's a Mutavault. That'll actually provide a little bit of pressure. The question now is, does he want to try to resolve Underworld Connections or not? Also has a Grey Merchant of Asphodel in his hand.
I think he needs to try to resolve Connections this turn because Adrian has used at least 1 counterspell, and also the Grey Merchant doesn't compel Adrian to respond.
Yeah. Connections will resolve. Kevin will draw a card right away. It's another copy of Connections before passing the turn back over to Sullivan. Does he have a Revelation to cast? You see him reaching for his deck. I'm not sure if he does. And he does not, so he just draws a card for the turn. He's going to play Temple of Deceit. A little scry action here. Leaves that card on top very quickly, passes the turn back over to Huang, who will untap, will take a draw step here. So he's starting to catch up a little bit. There's a copy of Hero's Downfall. A couple of dead cards in Kevin's hand right now with the Devour Flesh. Grey Merchant not really going to play a huge role here either, but he will pay a life, go down to 18, get another card in his hand. That is a Thoughtseize. That is a good start to his turn.
Yeah, Kevin doing a really good job of maximizing his resources here. Didn't run that Connections out on the 3rd turn. Now he's got some game. He is still going to be facing down a lot of dead draws over the course of this game, which is the big issue. Revelation
and go along with 2 verdicts. Adrian deciding not to cast Sphinx's Revelation here.
That is, I am surprised by that play.
You and me both, and let's remember, he kept the card on top of his deck very quickly. So I wouldn't be too surprised if this is another copy of Sphinx's Revelation that'll be rolling off the top of his deck. But again, remember, he scried so fast and kept that card on top. Yeah, and there's a Rev right now for 4.
Makes sense. I also like that attack by Kevin with the Mutavault rather than deploying the 2nd Underworld Connections, because he knows, of course, Adrian has 4 copies of Detention Sphere. He's happy drawing 2 cards a turn, but the risk of having both spheres get both Connections getting hit by the Detention Sphere, just too big of a risk.
Yeah. Kevin going to activate his Connections yet again, get a little bit deeper into his deck, see if he finds here. It's another copy of Hero's Downfall. So a lot of cards over there, not a ton of action. Here's a Temple. Take a look at the top card. Looks like he might leave that one pretty quickly here.
And you look at Kevin's hand, you can see the problem with the matchup. I mean, it's a lot of creature removal.
Yes.
He's doing fine so far. Certainly resolving his, being able to resolve 1 Underworld Connections gives him some game, but he's just choking on dead cards right now.
Let's see, here's a Jace. Looks like it may be Sphere Versus. You saw Adrian separate them. But it looks like Kevin did agree that that would be the split. So Adrian going to very quickly play a Detention Sphere. He's going to take care of the Underworld Connections. And has he played a land yet this turn? He's going to play a Temple. Leave that card on top and pass the turn back. So really, really nice start here for Adrian. The question is, does Kevin want to cast Hero's Downfall, or does he want to take down that Jace with the Mutavault? Looks like Mutavault may be the choice.
Yeah, it's incidental for him to kill this turn, and he still has to concern himself with Elspeth, so there's an incentive there for him to leave Hero's Downfall in his hand if he can.
Thoughts he's going to resolve. You got an island. a Last Breath, a whole bunch of Supreme Verdicts, and a Divination.
Most likely has to be Divination here.
I would think so, yeah.
I mean, maybe Last Breath if he feels the Mutavault's critical long term, but I like taking Divination here.
And that's what he will select. So
Kevin is in a ton of trouble if Adrian finds a Sphinx's Revelation, so you just can't allow him to draw cards if you can help it.
Follow up, there's another Connections and pass the turn back. So he's doing pretty well here as he does take care of a Jace. Adrian will quickly untap. He'll take a draw. He's going to play an island. He's just going to pass the turn back over to Kevin, who's going to activate his Connections and go down to 12. Kevin doing a lot of nice work this first game.
But he knows that Adrian's hand is just flush with removal. I mean, there's 3 Supreme Verdicts and such, so it's going to be an uphill battle for him to actually win the game with his creatures. He's essentially just going to have to overwhelm him with card advantage.
Going to start by drawing a card, going to go down to 11.
Most of Kevin's text boxes do not matter at this stage.
You see a couple of copies of Desecration Demon. You see the Grey Merchant. The Mutavault's still out there, but Kevin knows about the Last Breath in Sullivan's hand. He can start deploying threats and just trading them 1-for-1 with Supreme Verdicts, which is what he's probably going to have to do to slog through those. Now, again, as you did mention, if Sullivan at any point picks up a copy of Sphinx's Revelation, things get really bad here for Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin's whole game plan is predicated on Adrian not finding a source of card advantage himself.
Yep. And this is going to be a very quick Supreme Verdict because he has no interest in taking 6 points of damage, which is completely understandable if you're Sullivan. Kevin going to untap. He's going to take a draw here. He has a Swamp to his hand. We could see Connections activation here to start, and we will as Kevin goes down to 10. Again, we know he has a Grey Merchant. He's got that Mutavault, but that is bricked off by the Last Breath in Sullivan's hand, and any Desecration Demons will likely just keep trading with Supreme Verdicts. So hard to say who's actually in the driver's seat here. It's pretty back and forth.
Yeah, Kevin is going to be able to slog through 1-for-1s like Supreme Verdict and like Last Breath, as long as he keeps drawing cards with his Underworld Connections. The problem is that if he takes too long, if he's trying to like nickel and dime and play 1-for-1, you're giving Adrian a lot of time to find Sphinx's Revelation. Even Jace could be a disaster potentially.
There's a tempo, a little scry action here from Sullivan. That card goes to the bottom very quickly. I wouldn't be surprised to see that exchange yet again. There's Supreme Verdict to take care of Desecration Demon. No interest in taking 6 points of damage. Sullivan will pass it back over to Huang. Huang will untap. He's going to be ready to use Underworld Connections again. He starts by drawing a copy of Hero's Downfall. Down to 9 he goes. Another card coming. It's a Lifebane Zombie. That's another threat. That could potentially trade 1-for-1 with a Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, outside of Last Breath range, so it requires a different answer.
And he's going to start with the Lifebane Zombie. Here's the grip. Verdicts, Dissolve, Last Breath. Again, Adrian just looking for a haymaker here, be it Verdict, be it Aetherling, be it Elspeth. Elspeth won't be great, of course, because there's a Bioblight and Hero's Downfall over there in Kevin's hand. He's got plenty of removal, and if you're Adrian, you know how that matchup works.
Yeah. Elspeth's not going to be any good at this point. Kevin's seen too many cards.
Kevin going to play a Temple. He's going to scry the top card to the bottom, simply pass the turn back. No attacks in the Mutavault. Not willing to trade with Last Breath just yet. Maybe his thought is if I draw a discard spell, I'll actually take Last Breath and try to finish things off with Mutavault. Sullivan just draws and passes the turn back. Pack Rat is the draw here for Kevin. Sullivan more than happy to take 3 points of damage this turn instead of trading Lifebane Zombie for a Supreme Verdict. As Wang will draw a card.
Yeah, Adrian's still fairly high.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, Kevin's actually starting to run kind of low on life. I mean, he might not be able to spend his Connections for that much longer. Grey Merchant could potentially catch him up, but Adrian may be willing to fight over that with the Dissolve he has in his hand.
Five mana. This is a Grey Merchant. I would not be too surprised to see a Dissolve on this. But he's actually just going to let that go as well. Trying to pick a better spot for Dissolve.
Yeah, I think Adrian's already just committed to Supreme Verdicting Kevin once he deploys a second threat.
Yeah.
He needs to leave that Dissolve in his hand.
This is a Rev.
Or he can just do that.
That's not bad.
That's
not
fine.
bad.
That's fine too.
Yep. My recommendation would be to cast that for a bunch.
Sure.
That's 7 cards and 7 life, my friends.
Yep.
Up to 16. Whole lot of options coming as Devour Flesh is going to get discarded. That was the best draw, arguably, in the deck for Sullivan. Now he's got plenty of cards in his hand. There's an Aetherling among a whole bunch of other things. And we'll see what play he comes out with this turn. It's going to start with an island.
I mean, this could potentially be something along the lines of Supreme Virtue, detentions for your connections, pass with dissolve left.
Yep, which is the dream scenario, I think. So you're going to see Sullivan start to organize his mana.
He also has the Aetherling in hand.
Yeah, Aetherling, as good as that card is, it's not that it's bad right now. It's the fact that Kevin has so many removal spells. It's just going to get fogged a bunch.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's realistic to actually try to win the game with that card in this situation. You can deploy it, and it will just get, Hero's Downfall, Devour Flesh. You have to blink it out, all of this stuff. You have to commit a bunch of mana to it. It doesn't matter yet.
Yeah, Kevin's already discarding removal spells to hand size, so.
And he will actually deploy Aetherling right now. A little surprising. I mean, all kidding aside, it could have been a bad revelation for 7.
Well, I mean, you might as well get it going, right? And it does commit some of Kevin's mana. He can't fog it for forever. And if he wants to attack with his Great Merchant's and Mutavaults, he has to use the spell proactively.
That's true. That's true.
If Adrian has nothing better to do with his mana, he might as well get into play this turn.
Okay. Well, it's definitely the pathway he's taking, so please make sure you are signing and dating that. If you brought your own deck list. And Kevin is asking a question away from the table to the judge really quick here. Probably about some interactions with Aetherling and, removal spells and the timing and all of that stuff. When does it come back, when doesn't it?
The term interacting with Aetherling is pretty funny.
Yeah, that's not a thing that happens.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
If I was the judge, whatever you're about to ask, it just doesn't work.
My answer would always be unfavorable.
Right.
Right-hand corner, if you could write your table number, that would be awesome.
Oh, maybe it's the timing of when he needs to target Aetherling with a removal spell, so it doesn't come back on Kevin's turn. Yep. So the Great Merchant and Mutavaults can potentially.
Yeah, before Adrian actually, before he discards, you see Adrian's going to blink that out.
So at the AAV draft, if you don't want to go to the pairings board and have a smartphone, you can look up your pairings.
You guys can probably hear our players meeting for our Legacy Open taking place here.
Trades here at our events.
Whole bunch of people. Definitely a 9-rounder today.
Yeah.
Without question.
It's a pretty packed room.
Yeah.
On the right-hand side of the room, or our approved artists and altruists.
So Adrian, again, still deciding exactly what he wants to discard.
And again, we've seen Adrian do this over the course of the event when he's read for a lot and has to discard. He sets aside the cards that he's for sure going to discard, then picks up the hand of cards in question.
Yep.
Then that hand may be 9 or 10 cards or what have you, and then he discards down from there.
Yeah.
We have Jeff Miracola and Aaron Miller. Let's give them a hand.
So Celestial Flare will be discarded among a couple of lands. Pass the turn back, so these creatures have free reign to attack if they would like to. See the Grey Merchant and the Life Bane zombie out there. Another copy of Grey Merchant drawn.
Right next to the artists. So please make sure that you go and check out all of their.
See how Kevin wants to start his turn. See, Grey Merchant here would be for 8.
Very important thing we do have.
But he knows there's a high chance that he gets countered here.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's so unlikely he wins this game in any other way rather than Grey Merchant stealing it. That's probably his out here realistically.
This box right here on the right-hand side of the stage.
See the graveyard Kevin's analyzing, seeing what's going to work, what's not. Start by activating normal connections. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
I know you want to keep your stuff. It is important that you are the one.
Swamp is the draw.
And at this stage, it almost feels like no cards in Kevin's deck matter, with the exception of Grey Merchant and Thoughtseize.
Yep.
If you do have something.
Every other card he draws is just sort of, it's whatever.
Fire up one Mutavault. Knows that it will die last breath, potentially.
And then finally, please keep all food and drink off the table.
So there is your Mutavault activation. Adrian says, I may have a response to that.
Oxidize.
See both players talking back and forth a little bit.
Yeah. And again, Adrian's conscious of the fact that it's Grey Merchant here that matters.
I will now hand you over to your head judge, level 2, Brett Cycle from Chicago, Illinois.
Looks like we might see another Mutavault activation here. We do.
All right, I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to ask for 3 minutes
Maybe.
of your attention. I know it's hard to look at this. Suffer along, we'll get through time. First off, I'd like to thank.
What do you think the response Adrian is contemplating here is?
That's a good question. And it looks like, okay, it looks like nothing here. So it looked a little bit strange. But now an attack here for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sullivan's going to go down to 9.
mind to your triggers, pay mind to your communication. Communicate clearly.
So now Aetherling's going to come back.
Party will be at 0.
Will he fire off a copy of Lost Breath? No, he won't. Okay. I'm really interested to see exactly what Adrian's setting up now.
Yeah.
Because, for example, he could have cast Verdict,
Alrighty.
and he chose not to.
Have a problem.
And he wanted to play Aetherling instead. So he felt like his light total was high enough that he can do a bunch of different things here. Going to play a Temple of Enlightenment and Scry.
Well, it may be that he wanted to commit his mana last turn to this, and then either do something cheaper or chain together multiple spells this turn.
Let's say you disagree with
He's going to make this. He's going to make this unblockable.
or she didn't fully answer the question the way you liked. You have a right to appeal.
He's going to attack here for 5.
Appeals will come to me.
And 5 is the critical number, as it means the following. And now Aetherling is a lethal attacker.
Yeah, I just can't imagine that Adrian actually thinks that this thing is actually going to deal any damage, any relevant damage for the next handful of turns.
God forbid you have a
You gotta start somewhere.
Introduce yourself. This will help
Yeah.
the process go back quicker and avoid.
I would much rather, be trying to stabilize in the situation if I was him. Get these cards off of the board. I know that my opponent has a lot of removal in their deck, so they're not doing anything of relevance really with the cards in their hand. I have to take care of the creatures and the Underworld connections and the Mutavaults, and that's it. And then I can win at my leisure.
Oh, looks like Kevin's stopping him inside of combat. For
Yeah,
a bit,
and that's not a surprise. Here's a Verdict to clean these things up, which also isn't a surprise.
Mike Hafman. Mike Hafman, if you're in the room, please make your presence known by waving your arms violently in the air and saying, "I'm here."
And now this is going to come back.
Hafman.
Now, if Adrian is fine with his Aetherling dying, that's another thing entirely, because he has an Elixir in his deck, so if it does die, it's not the end of the world. See, an ultimate price is the draw.
All right, I see it.
Another fog.
Yeah.
Jared Trimberter.
Here's a draw.
Jared Trimberter, are you here?
Kevin going to go down another life point. See if he wants to do any firing up Immutavaults here or not. See a Pack Rat in his hand among a bunch of other removal spells. The Singleton, Bile Blight, and the Grip.
Protect your deck list. Judges may be begin collecting.
The Gray Merchant, that is of the, probably the most important card in his hand.
I have to imagine it's the thing that Kevin is trying to play towards. Trying to attack Adrian to death is just fraught with peril in so many different ways.
Yeah.
A million different tricks. Supreme Verdict's a threat.
3 of them are gone, 1 left, and he does have into the Grip, which Kevin does know. So deploying threats here is, like moving in on a Pack Rat, for example, that's probably not the best idea.
Well, Pack Rat is potentially valuable here for Kevin, as it's something that he can play that basically compels Adrian to Supreme Verdict right away or answer it in some capacity. And if Adrian doesn't, then Kevin can simply untap, make a bunch of rats, and threaten lethal. And Kevin has no end of cards to discard to a Pack Rat as well.
See Sullivan with 6 cards in his hand. Might see Kevin try to deploy the Gray Merchant here. Yeah. Again, I wouldn't be surprised to see a dissolve here, but at the same time, Adrian would be going from 9 to 5 if this resolves, and he might be okay losing that life.
He also has to go down to 1 mana with his Aetherling, and it's realistic that Kevin can chain together 2 removal spells this turn.
Yes, it certainly is. You can also see Adrian just last breath that with the Gray Merchant trigger on the stack, and then him just taking 2. And have 2 blue mana available to protect his Aetherling. I wouldn't be surprised if that was his line of play, but he's actually going to go with Dissolve.
He also might just be willing to say, I'm willing to let the Aetherling go. I'll trade some resources now.
And I think that that's still, I think that that's okay, because again, he has Elixir in his deck, and he doesn't need to win with Aetherling. If this Aetherling dies, it's not game over. It just seems like, more than anything, a minor inconvenience.
Yeah, absolutely. And if Kevin wants to spend his turn here also trying to fire together multiple removal spells at this Aetherling, that means he's not attacking with Mutavaults or advancing his board in other ways.
Yep.
So if Kevin, it's almost, you feel like this is your spot. If you can kill it, you have to get it off the table. But at the same time, it doesn't actually matter that much to Adrian at the end of the day. Or maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't. But Adrian's at least shown the willingness here to risk losing his Aetherling to, multiple Devour Flushes getting chained together.
Yeah,
or
I
what
think
have
he
you.
is. I think now, given the play pattern, I think he is fine losing his Aetherling. If it happens, it happens. Because again, with having Elixir of Immortality in your deck, there's, it's a minor punishment if he does lose it. And also, as you mentioned, commits Kevin's turn to actually having to do this. So
And it looks by the looks of things here that Kevin actually can't chain together 2 removal spells this turn. He has multiple copies of Hero's Downfall.
There's a pack rat. Yeah, so he has ultimate price, but he doesn't have price plus Devour Flesh.
Right.
Basically is the problem. So Adrian makes it out of that turn alive with his Aetherling. He's going to untap all those lands and take a draw here.
And having only 2 mana left over is bad for Kevin for another reason, which is he can't make a pack rat this turn, which is a critical part of him threatening lethal the following turn. If he could make a second rat, then with his Mutavaults and all of his mana in play, you're looking at a lethal attack potentially.
Sullivan going to start by playing a Plains. Now he does decide how he wants to manage his Aetherling here.
Tricky stuff. The pack rat is a little bit annoying.
That's because it's pack rat.
Yeah.
Pack rat is a little bit annoying.
I'm not passing judgment on the card, I'm just saying. From Adrian's perspective right now. It's something inexpensive that forces an answer.
Sullivan looking at his options here, knowing that he's beginning to turn the corner here. I think he's taking a look at the graveyard, thinking to himself, okay, how can I lose this game?
Yeah. And you can see him, he's sliding Thoughtseize up to the front here.
What are the things that you can find with Underworld connections in your draw step that make me lose this game?
Yeah. Maybe just trying to get a sense of Kevin's hand as well.
Yeah, you can put him on a range of cards.
I mean, the most logical things are removal spells or creatures that he's not willing to try to deploy into the face of more sweepers.
Everything's changed now.
Yeah.
The key rune is here.
The key rune is here. It was only a matter of time.
Yeah. Here comes an attack with Aetherling. It's going to be for a bunch, it looks like. Pump yet again. Pump yet again. Now, of course, we could see Ultimate Price get fired off here. Or we may not. It's up to Kevin on when he actually wants to use that effect.
I had to imagine it's worth doing here. You know, Kevin taking these shots contorts the way that he has to play for the rest of the game.
I agree.
He has to leave up enough mana to fog Aetherling at all times.
And he will pop the price. Adrian, predictably, going to phase out Aetherling.
It doesn't look good, but Kevin can't afford to take these shots. I mean, he can afford to take one, but it causes problems down the line for the way the game plays out.
Yeah.
All right, players, please make sure you're
Gonna play a Supreme Verdict.
down.
More than happy to trade one for one with Pack Rat. Have 2 blue mana available, one from the key room, one from the Hollow Fountain. That comes back, passes the turn back.
77 legacy players today. That will bring us to 9 wonderful rounds.
377 for Legacy. Heck of a turnout.
Yep.
Modified play draw rule.
Close to 10. Almost
Yeah.
got there.
And Swiss dictate who and
Huang gonna draw a card here. Another copy of Grey Merchant. That's the card, obviously, that Adrian has to be wary of. We
Yep.
saw him dissolve the last one. Doesn't have dissolve mana at the ready here. Kevin gonna start by drawing a card. That's a swamp. He'll put that directly into play.
Legacy Open competitors, welcome to round 1. You may begin.
We'll see if he wants to try to deploy this or not. He's also taking a look at his graveyard now, too, to see exactly what resources he has left. Because he's got to imagine that this Grey Merchant is incredibly important. Here's a Hero's Downfall. Adrian says, can I blink?
Is this the fight that Kevin finally wants to pick here?
And I might see some responses with just a bunch of Hero's Downfalls. We could also just see him try to Hero's Downfall this, just let it get blinked out, and then attack with 2 Mutavaults.
Yeah, firing up the Mutavaults here, pretty attractive. You can also fire up and hit with 1 Mutavault and play Grey Merchant as well.
All fairly attractive plays, yeah. He's going to put Sullivan down to 5. And the other thing he can do here is he can put Sullivan down to 5 and then deploy Pack Rat. He's just going to pass the turn back with the Hero's Downfall at the ready. So, in comes Aetherling yet again. We'll see what Adrian does find.
Yeah. Adrian or Kevin rather, is trying to fog these attacks and squeeze out this game.
Well, you got to say he's giving himself the best opportunity. That's for sure.
And it all comes down to him just not running out his Underworld connections on turn 3.
Yep.
He bled out some of Adrian's resources, which set this up.
An attack here for 8. Will it come through? Looks like the answer might be yes.
Okay. I think Kevin might be looking at his notepad here.
I keep one thing in mind here too, Patrick. Adrian has a copy of Zori's Charm in his hand that he can go lifelink mode on. The big question here is, does he have a counterspell to defend the removal spell?
Yeah.
Because if he gains 8 life, he probably is going to get it. Here's a Bile Blight. Huh.
Well, Bile Blight is rough because Adrian can simply spin the Aetherling back down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not great for him, obviously, but
He thought about casting Bile Blight. He showed Bile Blight. He might show Hero's Downfall now. And Adrian might show him a counterspell. He's going to blink. So this plan doesn't work. He's got to have a weak hand. He has to, right? There's a Mutavault. Mutavault plus Last Breath is online now.
I mean, it's starting to appear that way.
His rev just must not have been very good. Even though it was for 7. There's a key rune ready to tee up.
Yep. Hold him down the fort.
Wow,
we'll
what
find
a
out
big
now.
draw. A Thoughtseize is a huge draw there. What a big, big draw from Kevin.
I believe that's Thoughtseize number 3.
I believe so. 3 or 4.
Kevin's seen a lot of cards, so
Yeah,
not,
of course.
not too surprising.
Adrian gonna start tapping some mana right now. Says activate my key rune. Try to Last Breath it. Wants to Last Breath that instead of the Mutavault. Is that okay? He knows there's a Bile Blight. There is Bile Blight targeting the key rune, so that doesn't get the job done. Here's a Thoughtseize. That's a land. He's at 5 right now. Is this lethal? With Pack Rat plus Grey Merchant, yeah, that would be lethal.
Yeah, he's got it.
As long as he sequences correctly. There's Pack Rat, there's Grey Merchant. That's going to do it. Kevin Huang is going to win game number 1 off of the patience of not playing Underworld Connections on turn number 3.
Yeah, and that's a critical game for Kevin to pick up here.
Huge.
He gets to cut a lot of his removal spells in the post-board games, become a much leaner, more streamlined deck.
Yeah, an absolutely huge game for him to win. So we're back here in the booth. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, Star City Games finals of our Standard Open here in Milwaukee. We've got our 12-month premium giveaway for you guys. I'll let you explain the rules. I'll fire away with the question.
All right, so Cedric's going to ask you a question. You will tweet your answer at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct responders, one will be selected at random for a full year of Star City Games premium content. It's about accuracy and not speed, so don't worry about submitting your question first, just correctly.
Next weekend on the Open Series, I'll be doing coverage with Matthias Hunt, who is here playing High Tide this weekend. So buckle up for some long rounds and potentially some draws. But you'll have the weekend off. The question is where will we be next weekend on the Open Series? Myself and Matthias Hunt, along with Nick Miller for coverage. If you can name the city, hashtag your answer, hashtag SCG Premium. Make sure you're following at SCG Live, and we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our final match here between Kevin Huang and Adrian Sullivan. We'll head back down to the match right now because we're going to take a look at some sideboards here. And we'll see that Kevin has a lot of discard to bring in, but we'll take a look at Adrian's first and see what he can do to improve things.
3 Gainsay and Negate, a Render Silent, a Glare of Heresy, 2 Last Breaths, a Celestial Flare, a Debtor's Pulpit, a Blind Obedience, a Keening Apparition, a Ratchet Bomb, a Domestication, and a Jace Memory Adept. I got to watch Adrian play against Mono Black Devotion earlier in the tournament. He did bring in the Jace. He did bring in the Blind Obedience. I think he's going to want the Keening Apparition and the Ratchet Bomb as well as tools to fight over Underworld Connections. Ratchet Bomb can also be good against Pack Rat or just one of Kevin's general threats. I don't know if he's going to want to go so far as to bring in Last Breath. I think he would if he was playing against the Night Veil Spectre version, but since he's playing against one with Lifebane Zombie, probably stays in the sideboard. He may want the Negate and the Render Silent as well.
Other side of things, you've got a Bile Blight, 3 copies of Dark Betrayal, 3 Doomblades, 2 Freakus Cures, a Whip of Erebos, 2 Erebos God of the Dead, and 3 Duress. Pretty straightforward stuff here, actually, from Mono Black Devotion. You love Erebos, you love Duress, that's 5. Chances are you love Whip 2, that's 6. The rest of the stuff really doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it's not so much about what cards he's bringing in, although Duress and Erebos and Whip of Erebos are all good, but it's about the cards he gets to remove. He has so much creature removal dedicated in his Game 1 deck that he gets to take out for cards that are much more powerful in the matchup.
Yeah, swaps are so easy. 4 Devour Flesh, Ultimate Price, and a Bile Blight. Get out of my deck.
Easy.
Yeah.
He can bring, obviously, Hero's Downfall is still fine against Adrian's Planeswalker, so easy.
Yeah, I mean, his deck is going to be very, very compact, streamlined after sideboard for Pack-Rats, Lifebane, Desecration Demon, Grey Merchant. For Heroes Downfall, he'll have 2 Erebos, a 4 Duress because he has 1 in his main deck this weekend, a Whip, 4 Thoughtseize, 4 Connections, 17 Swamps, 4 Mutavaults, 4 Temple Deceits. Let's go to work.
Easy.
Yeah.
As straightforward as it gets.
And Adrian will know that, of course, because the players have access to each other's deck lists, so they can take a look. We'll see how Adrian wants to sideboard. You see all those 1-ofs in his sideboard. He's used those to great effect over the course of this weekend. We saw in the last match against Jared Roca, and we'll see how they come into play here.
Yeah, Jace Memory Debt was especially good in the match that I watched him play against Mono Black Devotion.
You have to imagine it would be. Just a nice card drawing engine. It's Heroes Downfall or bust against that thing. Games are going to go long here. There's not going to be any games presumably stolen by Pack-Rat.
It's very hard. Detention Sphere, Supreme Verdict, Last Breath. A lot of answers that Adrian has access to.
Adrian's got to be thrilled that he doesn't have to worry about Nightveil Spectre. Lifebane Zombie still good, of course, but...
Speaks a lot to the power of Underworld connections and Thoughtseize that Kevin was able to beat a Rev for 7.
Agreed. I thought that was going to end it.
Yeah.
And that's why I was a little bit surprised to see Adrian actually deploy the Aetherling the turn that he did, because I felt that, if you're revving for 7 there, you probably found something really nice to actually end the game with. But, as he used his resources and got bled out a little bit, he did not find what he was really looking for.
Yeah, he almost worked the game to the spot where Kevin was out of removal for Aetherling.
Yeah,
it took several turns.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously what he was trying to do, is just really work it down and with any luck be able to find one more Rev or an Elixir to shuffle the Revs back in or a Jace or what have you, and he was unable to do that. Now, of course, Thoughtseize was timely on the last turn, but that's why you play a bunch.
And it turns out that Kevin actually didn't need it. I mean, he wanted the information, of course.
Yeah.
But he had the game locked up based on what was in his hand.
Yep. And, heck, even if he found the 1 main deck Duress, he's got 5 discard spells in his main deck, so he's obviously gearing his deck towards beating control a little bit. He's got just a little bit less removal and a little bit more disruption to go after control decks.
And Duress is also very helpful in the Bird matchup, which is one of the more challenging matchups for Mono Black Devotion.
A decent amount of that here this weekend. Not a ton, like we saw at Grand Prix Beijing, but a decent amount. No staffs in the sideboard of Kevin's deck. Not feeling he needed to go that route to be able to beat Burn. Don't know how much he expected to see, but obviously not as much as Yuya and Shuhei expected to see in Beijing, and they were right about that, that's for sure.
Although I believe our first overall seed was playing Red, White, Burn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lost to Jared Roca playing Esper, which is a little bit of a surprise to me, actually.
I feel that matchup's actually pretty favorable for Esper. Jared was even light on hate or sideboard cards for the matchup. Still won.
They did have Spectres and Blood Barons, so that's got to be pretty nice too. A much more creature-oriented plan that he can put together to actually close games out pretty quick.
Yeah, that's the important thing. You don't want to be sitting on your hands all day.
Yeah. So Sullivan will be on the play here, as he did lose game number 1. Kevin able to break serve. So if we do go to a 3rd game, Huang will have the option to play first, which is certainly a big deal here. So Adrian getting ready here. I think he's maybe considering if he wants to keep his opening hand or not. A couple deep breaths. And we'll be underway here in just a little bit. See if he wants to keep is the question.
He's looking down at his deck. Yeah, he's
not a fan.
Letting it go.
And Kevin looks like he's good to go. So Sullivan down to at least 6 cards.
And mulliganing in the post-board games is so brutal, as Kevin is 8 discard spells. Although Kevin's mulliganing as well. The idea, the line of Adrian's getting his hand picked apart, the relevant spells getting removed, and Kevin working with complete information about what he needs to play around. Much more likely when Adrian has to mulligan.
Yeah, one of the best cards that you can actually have against mono black mulligans or no is Divination. So good at just, you want to be able to just find cards, even if you draw 2 lands off of that, means you hit your land drops to hit your Revs and your Aetherling and your Elspeth and things of that nature. So Divination is a huge tool in this matchup, and Adrian has 2 copies of that.
There's also just not a lot going on turn 3.
Yeah,
I mean,
for
it's
sure.
Underworld connections are busts for the most part for the Mono Black Devotion deck, and you can clean that up with Detention Sphere the following turn. So I'm sure if Adrian had the option of playing 4 Divinations, he would in this matchup.
Love a draw, too. Council of Sora Tommy looking nice.
Pretty underrated card. Again, mostly because Standard has usually had better card drawing options afforded to it.
Everybody's a hater.
It is. It's true.
That's what it is. People are too proud for cancel.
Oh, War Leader's Helix. This is just worse than Lightning Helix. It's like, yeah, that can be true, and it can also still be good enough for Type 2. That's a thing.
It's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
6 cards coming for each player.
Oh man, Brainstorm, so much worse than Ancestral Recall.
Adrian has one too many, I think.
Whoa.
You do not want to have a force mulligan. There you go. There you go.
For all the tight technical play that Adrian's displayed so far this weekend, that would be a really bad way to go out.
He's down to 5 now. See if Kevin's happy with what he's got. I know he's got Underworld Connections over there.
I mean, discard spell into Connections, if Adrian's on 5 cards, could be hard to beat.
Yeah, for sure.
And it also just, in general, blunts the impact of something like Sphinx's Revelation. Underworld Connections is still quite functional and castable and powerful on a 5-card hand. Revelations is about hitting your land drops and defending yourself, so it's just much harder.
No, he does not like that 5 either. I think he's forced to keep it. That's a Plains past the turn back.
And starting off with a basic land is pretty rough.
Oh, boy. Yep. Now you see the problem. There's a Jace. There's a Div. That's a Temple. All right. That card is going to stay on top, so you have to assume that might be a land here. This is a Thoughtseize from Kevin. Div, Rev, Jace, Jace. Which would you like?
Gotta be Divination.
I think that's the best of the bunch.
With Adrian scrying on top, you know, he has a second copy of Jace. If he leaves Divination, then the sequence of Divination into Jace is just too obvious. That's a lot of cards.
Yeah. I see Kevin's hand. He's pretty land heavy, actually. He's got a Hero's Downfall and a Connections and not much else. So see if Adrian's able to draw a land to Temple. He could find a 4th land here. That card, that's going to go to the bottom. So Kevin will have the opportunity to resolve Underworld Connections if he'd like. Draws a copy of Desecration Demon. Connections will come into play. Let's see if Adrian can find land number 4. Let's see, he knocks the top of his deck. He does. All right, we can play a little magic here. There's a Jace. Turns over 3 cards immediately. Another Jace along with 2 lands. Okay.
And remember, he's got Revelations in his hand.
Yes.
So these lands are really dangerous for Kevin.
You see him perk up a little bit.
Sitting up in his seat, he can feel he's got a game.
Lands versus pretty easy take there. Put the Jace to the bottom. Kevin going to untap. He'll take a draw here. It's a copy of Immutavault. He's going to play a Desecration Demon, it looks like. Yes, he will. Pass the turn back. Adrian going to quickly untap. He'll take a draw.
And I'm not sure how I feel about playing Desecration Demon instead of drawing a card, because you just and playing Hero's Downfall, letting Adrian look at 3 more cards is really dangerous.
Really risky.
And this Desecration Demon, I mean, what's the likelihood it just goes uncontested for 4 turns?
Yep.
Pretty low.
Render Silent, Jace, and a land. How to split. You know your opponent has another Jace.
3-0.
3-0 is probably not the optimal one. I will go with that.
That's an aggressive split.
Yeah. You must really think you're winning.
Yeah.
All things being honest, it is a tough split here.
And it does not look like Adrian is a person who mulliganed to 5 cards.
Not right now.
Are we going to see a mulligan to 5 and then several turns later a discard to hand size? Is that in play?
That would be absurd. Counterspell versus. Decisions. He'll take the land and the Jace, render silent to the bottom. Let's see what the follow-up play is going to be. It's a Jace. Going to use this. 1 and a 2 and a 3. Got a Ratchet Bomb and Debtor's Pulpit and a land.
Debtor's Pulpit's so good in this matchup, too, because
Great in this matchup.
Kevin can't get it off the table.
Yep.
So once it's there, it's there.
He takes the Pulpit. He's going to put the 2 cards to the bottom. Has not played a land yet this turn. Probably going to play the Temple of Enlightenment. Going to scry.
I think he has 7 cards in his hand now.
And blue-white's a powerful drug.
Wow. This is insane. I mean, again, Adrian, by no means out of the woods. The connections for Kevin is very threatening, especially.
Yeah, he's got to find a D-sphere and things of that nature. Revoke Existence, who knows? Get some of that stuff off the table. He's obviously going to lose his Jace this turn. Take a draw this, Kevin. It's a Duress. It's a pretty good draw. Gets rid of the Debtor's Pulpit. If that's what he wants to take, but we're likely going to get to see Adrian's grip here in just a second.
Yeah, the problem is that he also knows about the revelations that Adrian's building towards. So it's not clear he has the luxury of taking something like Debtor's Pulpit.
Kevin going to start by activating Underworld Connections. I think he may have picked up, he picked up 2 Duresses
All right,
this
well,
turn.
now maybe he does.
Yep. Yeah, so looks like we're going to have an attack here for 8. I think, yeah, so what Kevin did there is he announced the Desecration Demon trigger, and when you do that, you can't activate Mutavault. Because once Adrian passes priority on it, then all you can do is attack. So here's the grip. You see a Rev, a Jace, a Pulpit, lands.
So Kevin can fight the card advantage battle here by taking the 2 card drawers, leaving Adrian with the Pulpit.
There goes Rev. This is another Duress.
Not unreasonable to take Pulpit here either.
Yeah, I think taking Pulpit's fine. Because you know the Jace is just going to die, right? Like, he's going to play Jace, he's going to minus, so he's going to get some cards, and you get to kill it again.
Yep.
So Jace doesn't play a huge role, just plays basically a mini divination at this point. Now, Kevin's hand isn't great. I mean, if you're Adrian, you have to deal with Desecration Demon, you got to deal with connections, and then there's a Mutavault, and then Kevin has a Hero's Downfall and a land in his hand. So he's done a nice job of tearing apart Adrian's hand, but Adrian's also done a nice job of coming back in this game, and Adrian is sitting at 20 as we move into the mid game here.
And some big draws.
Yes. So we're going to take a draw. He's worked his way back into this game. Now he can take a deep breath because he gets to play some Magic here.
Yeah. Looked like there was some chance of that not happening as he kept basic planes 4 spells on the play.
You've got an Essence Scatter, you've got a Temple, you have an Island. It's lands versus. He's going to take the Scatter. Little surprising there.
Well, his hand's a little land heavy.
Going to play a Mutavault. Has the ability to cast the Scatter. He'll pass the turn over to Kevin. Huang is going to untap. He'll take a draw. He's going to start by activating Underworld Connections, we think.
With that Mutavault play the previous turn, it looked like a small thing, but it actually cost Kevin 6 points of damage. The Mutavault would have been able to finish off Jace.
You see Kevin asking maybe about the timing rules of Desecration Demon's trigger and how things work and things of that nature. So,
yeah, essentially what happens is he announces the trigger. Adrian then has the option of either sacking something or not. Once that moment passes, we are in combat. You need to be attacking with whatever you're attacking with. So you can't announce Desecration Demon's trigger, have Adrian pass, and then fire up your Mutavault. You need to do that beforehand.
that is correct.
So Kevin just noodling this one through, I guess.
Yeah, definitely weighing in on his decisions. He knows that Adrian has an Essence Scatter. He's cast the Jace that he saw. He's not sure about some other things in Sullivan's hand right now. He knows that he's a little bit land heavy. He's working his way back into this game, so.
Another issue here is just, you know, ideally you would like to send Mutavault at Jace and Desecration Demon at Adrian, but there is a risk of Adrian having something like Last Breath. And letting him keep the Jason going the next turn is a huge risk.
So yeah, Mutavault's going to come over here. That's going to go upstairs. This might be an attempt here to block with Mutavault. They were just discussing about the shortcut of passing priority for combat, things of that nature. With Desecration Demon, Hero's Downfall is going to take care of this. So now Adrian's going to lose both the Mutavault and the Jace now. And Adam will attempt, but it didn't work out the way that he probably wanted it to.
Right. Although by not playing his land before combat, Kevin's cost himself a card here, as he had to tap the land that the Underworld Connections was attached to.
So I'm going to play a Temple right away. Not sure if he has a card like Supreme Verdict just yet, and wants to get that Demon off the board, that's for sure. Detention Sphere would take care of something, but all you can do is pass the turn back.
The Black Devotion deck is so good at blunting the impact of Supreme Verdict in the post-board games because you can just become this Duress Thoughtseize control deck. Mutavault's a big part of that plan, too.
Take a draw, Wu Huang. To Temple of Deceit. Has not played land yet, has another Desecration Demon in the grip. Gonna play a Temple, take a look at the top card, gonna leave that on top. Activate Mutavault, fire in. Yep. Sullivan going to take 8 to go down to 6. He got himself back into this game a little bit earlier with some fortunate draws, but he's having some real trouble now as he untaps that Temple of Deceit. He'll take a draw. That's another copy of Temple of Deceit.
The demon is lethal. He has to answer it right now. And he couldn't answer it last turn.
There's a verdict. That'll take care of it. Mutavault's still looming. He's going to pass the turn back. Will Sullivan over to Kevin.
I think Kevin's done a really good job in this match of rationing his threats and sequencing his spells.
Erebos the draw here. He's got a Desecration Demon. Erebos not live at this moment, but doesn't take much to turn on. He's going to start by activating connections and go down to 15. That's a draw. It's another swamp. There is a swamp. He can fire up the Mutavault, put Sullivan down to 4, and then deploy one of those 4-mana threats. The question is, which one?
I mean, he is aware of the Essence Scatter still.
Mm-hmm. There's your attack. There's your Erebos. No scatter here. Can you scatter that there?
Yep. Pretty sure. The text, the tagline
Yeah,
says
you can't
creature.
negate. Yeah, you can't negate it. That's it. That's it.
Because negate says non-creature.
Non-creature. Yeah,
right.
yeah. Another connection shot here for Kevin.
Adrian has found a Mutavault, which may, in theory, allow him to trade Mutavaults.
Well, he's certainly going to try.
Yeah, he's going to make the effort. And as bad as this is going for Adrian again, it still feels like Revelations gets him right back in.
Yeah, that's what Rev does. It's one Rev away from getting back into it. There's another connections. How's this going to resolve? Looks like it does. Draw a card. Not Deesphere gets him back into the game,
Yep.
too. Let's see what he finds here with the draw. It's a Pack Rat. It's a perfectly acceptable draw. Going to play Desecration Demon. Let's see if he has a Rev. Rev would be huge right now. Nope. Just has to draw. That is a Hallowed Fountain. Just has to pass the turn back. Desecration Demon may get locked down by Pack Rat this turn. Or excuse me, by Mutavault this turn.
Pretty crazy that Adrian kept a 1-lander on the play, and it looks like he might lose the game to Flooding Out.
Yeah. Lifebane Zombie the draw here for Huang. So he's got a handful of creatures down. Pack Rat, Desecration Demon also in the grip. Gonna activate connections one more time. Take a draw. Gray Merchant over there as well. That might be the one that locks it. Has not played a land yet this turn. Can actually play Lifebane Zombie into... Can play Lifebane Zombie into Gray Merchant. See if the coast is clear. There's your swamp.
Yep. If he has Lifebane Zombie, that makes it a little easier. I was going to say, otherwise, it's probably just worth it declaring combat. See what Adrian does. Because he might Azorius Charm one of your threats or something along those lines.
Yep. I think now he can afford to play Lifebane Zombie pre-combat and see where things go. Now, he could walk into a bit of a trap here. There's a card like Fated Retribution that does exist.
Yep.
Sullivan going to activate Mutavault and sacrifice it. Attack here with Mutavault. Adrian going to go down to 2. I think you got to go for it if you're Kevin.
Yeah, at this point, there's just really good odds that he's done for.
Yeah. Shows 2 lands and extends the hand. Kevin Huang is going to win this match and this tournament. He is your Star City Games Milwaukee Standard Open champion. Congratulations to him.
Awesome run. Really impressed by the way that he sequenced his spells in the finals there. Showed an understanding of the matchup. Again, I think there's a lot of players there that on turn 3 just put the connections down the table and hope for the best. Kevin had a path to actually get it to resolve, and that was all the difference.
Yeah. Mono Black Devotion does it again. Not the first time, won't be the last time. One in Beijing, wins here this weekend. No staff of the Death Magus necessary. Congratulations again to Kevin Huang, with Mono Black Devotion, your 6th seed and your Star City Games Standard Open champion here in Milwaukee.